Started. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So first, I guess we have a required announcement that we're holding the meeting in accordance with the temporary suspension and enhancement of the open meeting law by Governor Baker. We've all managed to find it on the town website, so we assume it's right. Because of remote participation, all votes, we need to call attendance, take attendance, and all votes have to be held as a roll call vote. So with that, for the record, present, in the order you appear on my screen, Dick Elkin, then Lillian Green, G.B. Bigham, Suzanne Ryan. I see Courtney is still here, Courtney Butler. Robert Shapiro, Carol Magano, and Chuck Cole.
I'm here.
Right. Well, so those are, I can see you all, so that's our attendance for today. The agenda.
So, Dick, this is Robert. I can only be on here for an hour, and I notice that the item I might talk about is near the end. So,
be happy to talk about it first after the just approval of the minutes. Okay.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
That's okay with everyone.
Yes.
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 So do I have a motion on the minutes? Or are there any comments on the minutes? Is there a motion?
I vote to minutes.
Carol, that's Carol Magano, move to approve. Second?
Second, Chuck Cole.
Okay. Chuck, all in, oh, no, got to do this by roll. Pardon me. Dick Elkin, aye. Robert Shapiro?
Aye.
Suzanne Ryan?
I.
Carol Magano?
Aye.
Chuck Cole?
Aye.
Lily Ann Green? Lily?
Yes.
And GB?
Am I voting tonight?
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah,
let's
you're
see.
7.
There are two people missing, but one is, yes, you are.
Aye.
Okay. David Mead Fox is not present, so you're filling in for him. And Kumbler is an alternate, so we don't need, but we have 7 now. Okay, so let's go. Which item did you want to discuss, Robert?
Oh, it's just the issue about the Global Covenant of Mayors.
Okay, let's take that item up then.
So I did make a new submission, which lacked certain information, specifically the information about the use of gasoline by the fleet of police cars has not been recorded. That's not reflected in the greenhouse gas inventory that I updated. But when we have that information, I will update it. In the meanwhile, the process of submitting it to the global database of greenhouse gases is something which, in any case, comes later on in the season. It's done automatically by the company that's running the computer system for doing that. And otherwise, I expect to get some feedback from the people who monitor all this information, making suggestions about how to improve it. I don't know whether any of you have actually looked at the Global Covenant website, because if you look at it and you put down the name of the town of Wellfleet, you'll see an updated picture of what the town has accomplished so far from the Global Covenant's point of view.
Could you send the link to everybody?
Yes, okay, I will do that after the meeting is over. I will send a link to everybody.
Okay. What do you need to get the gasoline? Who do you get it from? The fire
Well-
department, the police department, or the town clerk?
The problem here this year has been that since the updating of the Mass Energy Insight database was taken over and is not being done by us, we were not involved in collecting any of the information. We spent a fair amount of time 2 years ago tracking down how to get the information, because all of the gasoline is purchased by the town, but using another town's facilities. So it wasn't clear who actually had the information. But I assume that that's been solved, and we're just waiting for the information to be reflected in the database. And then I can use that information to update the global covenant information.
So do you need to
They're buying the gas in Eastham from the Eastham DPW.
You need to contact Margaret Song to find out, or are you waiting for Eastham?
Well, I eventually got the information directly from Eastham, but I don't know what Margaret Song is doing. She seems to know how to do all the things, but she said she hasn't yet gotten that information.
Okay. So on what schedule do you need to drop her a note asking her if there's a problem?
Well, we have until December to put a final update on that data. So I have reason to think that, Margaret will get that information and have it reflected in the Mass Insight database, way before then.
Besides this information, what else do we need to file a report under the Green Communities Act? Because it has to go out before the end of the year, so it's getting close to the end of the year again.
Right, but I filed something which contains all of the information apart from the use of gasoline. So I don't view, I don't view this as a serious problem.
But the report needs to get signed off by the town administrator and sent in on time, right? So we ought to give them 2 months to do that. Say November 1st.
Who is it you
The
write
town
that?
administrator has nothing to do with filing this report.
Well,
The town administrator did not want to be in the position of being responsible for updating this database, and therefore left it to me.
Dick is talking about the Green Communities report. So who is responsible for that?
Yeah, remember the year we didn't get the Green Communities report in on time. I thought it was sat on the town administrator's desk for 60 days.
Who is responsible for writing that, Dick?
Robert?
Who's responsible for writing the Green Communities report?
Yes.
I think Margaret Song is the person who, receives support, monetary support, in order to maintain the Green Communities information in an updated form.
So,
To my knowledge, that never goes through the town of Wellfleet administrator.
but the year we screwed up, did go through because it sat on Dan Hood's desk for 60 days and he didn't send it in on time. So we know he has some role in submitting the Green Communities report. Or,
Do you want me to ask
Well-
Margaret Strong, who's responsible for this report?
yeah, if you want to do that? Let's
Sure.
just understand
always-
we're not going to come up short again the way we did 2 years ago.
She's very responsive.
I think it's got to, it sounds like it's more than just who's responsible for preparing the report. It's, who's responsible for signing off. It might be she prepares the report, but the town administrator has to sign off.
I thought so
I
too,
think-
because the
I think-
report was completed, Dan Hort just didn't sign it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, is that might be part of the process. I think the question to her is who prepares it, but what is the overall process as well?
Right.
And who's responsible for sending it in? So Carol, are you following up with that?
Yes, I will follow up with Margaret and if necessary, the town administrator. I mean, I don't know who else to ask, but
Thank you.
Well, we don't expect the town to actually do
And
anything.
my understanding of it is,
Yeah, Robert?
I have never been directly involved in the preparation of that report. The only thing that I've used is the information in the Mass Energy Insight database in order to get the information that I needed for filing with Global Covenant. That had nothing to do with the town filing the Green Town report. And I believe that Margaret has been the one who's done that in the past.
You're right. I recall now that Margaret, in a communication to me, wrote she had prepared the report and it was sitting on Dan's desk for 2 months while he failed to get it in on time. So she prepares it. But when she prepares it, we want to know it's there so we can walk it through to make sure it doesn't get failed to get signed off and submitted the way it was 2 years ago.
Well, it
But Margaret wrote the whole report. You're right.
sounds like Carol's going to take care of it and ask the right questions and follow up on it. Thank
Right.
you.
So the question for Margaret is, when does she think the report will be available for signing and what's the process?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, Robert?
No, that was what I wanted to make sure I updated people
Okay.
on. That's fine.
So now, I guess we'll go back to the agenda in the original order. Town meeting. Well, congratulations, we got both of our articles through, or the articles we were concerned about. What happens, is there anything else on Article 17, the funding?
I wanted to say something about that. I was very upset when I realized what the final text of the article was, because not only does it not mention the Energy Committee, but it doesn't say it's for climate change. And I have only myself to blame because I've seen that in both the August agendas, it was the new text and I just didn't notice that it was changed. But I wonder, did the town tell us that they had changed the text, or were we just supposed to notice? Which I didn't.
Which article is that, Carol?
Article 17, when we submitted it, it was matching funds for climate change. Now it just says it's matching funds for grants for any town committee or
Okay,
official.
so before we get totally upset, let's just wait and see, one, whether or not we have use on the funds, and two, whether or not they use the funds for something else and we can't get it. And then next year we'll be more specific.
Well, we were specific. My concern is what was the process that got it changed? And did they notify us that they had changed it?
No, I suspect it was just the lawyers did their thing and nobody noticed.
Yeah. I mean, I hold myself to blame for not noticing it, but I think we do need to be very vigilant given this experience, because I'm hoping that they will see fit to give us the money, but I'm sure there are other people looking for grants that require matching funds.
Well, so far, nobody has ever put such an article on the warrant. So I don't think so.
Oh, well, Nancy Chavetta mentioned matching funds in her little presentation. So it's not unheard of.
Okay, so let's see what needs we develop before we get upset that there are no funds left. Okay, and where do we have any specific ideas about where we need funding? Yet.
Yeah, I had something to say about that. Well, I was going to report about it in the grants update. But the current MVP grant for low-lying roads hasn't been accepted by the MVP. We just heard that from the Cape Cod Commission. I can go more into that at the grants thing. I'll just keep it on topic for now for matching funds purposes. But the Wellfleet's matching fund requirement for that particular project, and that's before Article 17 was even discussed in meeting or passed. Our matching requirement was going to be around $74,000.
Could you,
which includes
Suzanne.
in kind.
You're breaking up, Suzanne. Can
Oh,
you talk closer
okay.
to the microphone and slowly?
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. Is this better?
Yes.
Is this better? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I got Ethernet cable and everything. I'm trying to do everything right to avoid that. Okay. So should I just start all over again?
Well, yeah. Okay. Yes.
Okay, so I have more to say about the whole, where we're at with grants, but as pertains to matching funds, the MVP, the current one that was submitted in June, and that's before Article 17 was brought before the town, obviously, that was going to be a matching requirement of $74,000, which is our request, and that would include in-kind matches. And I guess I'm guessing without knowing that the idea is to do in-kind completely at that point.
We need to match $74,000.
No, our matching requirement for the first low-lying road project that we're partnering with Cape Cod Commission, and they submitted that proposal to this past June to MVP proposal request. It was a $254,000 grant request, but it covers several towns. However, our individual matching requirement was going to be about $74,000.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea. What's that?
We did not get that grant, correct?
No, I was going to bring that up. I wasn't going to go into, because we're not talking about grants, but just to give you an idea of what matching fund requirements look like, and how the town has dealt with it before. I believe it was assumed at the time of submitting that proposal back in June that the kind would be taken care of through salaries, town salaries. Because I don't think that they were going to seek anything from the town budget as a match. So,
Well, we're on the topic. Does everyone want to just talk about the grants at this point? We
Are
don't
there,
have to do it in the original order. So why don't you fill us in on the whole
okay,
situation?
it'll make a lot more sense.
Right.
Okay, sure.
Susan,
So,
Dan, are there other grants that we need the match for right now?
not right this minute.
Okay.
No. And okay, so the thing is, yeah, so let me just go over the whole grant situation. So we just learned from Cape Cod Commission, from Heather McElroy, that the proposal was not accepted by MVP. So that's for low-lying roads, and it's kind of phase one roads. I mean, these projects have been broken down into several just to make it financially manageable for asking for funding money. But so this was, we talked about it. It was submitted in June. We now learned that it was turned down. So we have partial, big chunk of funding for that from the EDA, which is the Energy, I I would get it down. But I believe it's a state agency or maybe federal. But anyway, we have a big chunk of that project. However, MVP will not give us the other amount. So where we're at, partnering with the Cape Cod Commission, is that we have to seek another funder. So right now, it's in the middle of being replanned. However, that said, it's very likely that the matching requirement will be somewhere close to that matching fund requirement of $74,000. So that just gives you an idea. And I think that we, so the other thing I was saying about that is that it's pretty much slowing down the rest of our grant goals because they're all low-lying road related, and they were sequential to this one particular project, which is the hiring of an engineering consultant to come in and assess for vulnerability and priority roads, and then present to the public, and then go back and narrow it down to the 2 top priority roads. And that was this proposal. And then there would be a whole new project after that. And that's where Carol and I were going to pick up with upcoming projects. But we're kind of stalled at this one, and we're going to work with Cape Cod Commission we're having a meeting with Heather McElroy to do all of this, about where we stand and how to prioritize and what we should be doing and all that.
What percentage of this matching grant do we think we can say is in kind from town employees and volunteers?
That's a very good question, because prior to the meeting last Saturday, before we had this $50,000 match, I think
Can't hear
lost
you.
again.
Can't hear you.
We lost you again.
Can't hear you, Susan. Susan? Can't hear you.
Oh, all right.
So prior to the meeting, that's last we heard.
Okay, so
Saturday.
prior to the meeting, the idea, I believe, was that because there were no matching funds, right? There was no $50,000. I think the belief was that that $74,000 matching requirement was going to be done 100% in kind.
Okay. So is that still viable?
Um, I'm, you know what? I'm just going, I really don't know because I haven't asked that question yet. We'll ask Heather. Personally, I don't see what would change that, except that the town might say, use some of that $50,000. They
So
might
why
say
don't we
that.
try to use a small percentage, no more than a quarter of the 50,000, and
Yeah.
the rest in kind?
But in kind, are we talking DPW machines and and people? I mean, what are we talking? What does that in kind constitute? I mean, it's not.
Heather was the coordinator, or Hillary was the coordinator of the previous grant. So a lot of it was
Okay.
her time.
Oh, okay. So it's administrative as much as anything.
Yes.
Okay. I was just wanted clarity there. That helps. I just wasn't sure if it was shovels and gas money or it was
No,
administrative
prep
help.
time is mostly what we're talking about, I think.
Okay, thank you. That's
All right. So
So that's where we pretty much stand with grant projects.
okay, what's the probability that the Cape Cod Commission will find an alternate funding for the match?
That's what we want to find out on Thursday.
Who are you meeting with? Heather McElroy?
Heather McElroy. Yes.
Okay. So when you find out, drop me a note. In fact, inform the committee. Okay?
Okay, absolutely. And then just for everybody's information, for that particular project, there are a few Cape Cod towns that are relying on this to happen. We mostly put the idea down by approaching Heather. Bourne, Barnstable, Brewster, Eastham, and Truro are all depending on this type of project to happen and to be funded. So I don't think they're just going to drop it and let it go. And Cape Cod Commission is very willing to partner with us, probably with those towns moving forward for the other aspects of low-lying road work that needs to be the projects that we're looking at in the next year or two. There's a good chance that we'll be partnering with Cape Cod Commission with that, and perhaps those other towns
So the
as
Cape
well.
Cod Commission part that fell through, that was actually a federal grant, right?
No, I believe, okay, for understand, I'll clarify this with the EDA is federal. I just have so many acronyms running around in my head that, you know, I can't be 100% sure, but I believe EDA is federal. And that funding is in the hands of the Cape Cod Commission. It is available for this project, and it will fund this project, just not 100%. So Cape Cod Commission was looking at the NP to come up with, let's say, the second, minus matching funds, the second part of grant funding for it. So they're looking at two funders basically. So MVP didn't do it, and we don't know they might, she might talk to them and say, can you give us a good reason why this is anything that we can do in the next cycle to improve our chances, or she might look for completely different sponsors. So that's one thing I want to ask her on Thursday.
So Suzanne, I'm looking online and it says that the EDA is Economic Development Administration. Does that sound right?
That's it. And that's federal, correct?
Federal government, right.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly it.
Okay, I'll use that in the minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this topic?
No.
Okay. I guess the next thing is Article 25, which is also related to the high school, I guess. Fortunately, Article 25 passed.
Did it pass with the language that was printed in the warrant?
No. It was the language that was in the motions article.
What was
I
that?
think we substituted the words all town officers, departments, committees, and representatives. And then we added net zero no later than 2050 in the motion. But don't quote me, the motion, it should be available online, but the motion was slightly different than what was in the warrant.
And was it passed as a bylaw change?
Yes, as a target or goal as opposed to a policy.
Was that language changed?
Yes, you'd have to. I mean, I don't want to be quoted in the minutes of the exact wording. But it was a target or a goal rather than a policy, and it did say before 2050, and it involved all town employees, elected officials, employees, committees, and town representatives. The representatives includes our representative to the school board, naturally. And along that line, which is the next article, the next item for discussion, but related, I did started contacting the Brewster Energy Committee and Select Board and so on, and sent them a note, and I began to hear back. Brewster is probably the point where we have the most leverage, because unlike all the other towns involved, Brewster isn't so sure they want the high school in the first place. Okay, so there's enough so they can't afford in Brewster to lose any support. So we're working with Brewster to see if they will support this wording and put pressure on them. But I'm not getting any feedback from the committee itself.
What was the letter we read? You sent it out to us. It was a Peter. I can't remember his name. He didn't sound like he was fully on board, but it was to do with Brewster, I know.
Yeah, he was from Brewster. No. But the next step is to start having discussions. Now
Gotcha. Okay, fair
got
enough.
the topic, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else anyone wants to say about either Article 25 or the high school? When the state still has to come out with its recommendations for 2030 and 2040 in a plan, and there are two bills that went through the legislature, one bill from the Senate, one bill from the House, They're different naturally, but they've gone to a committee of 6 people, 3 representatives and 3 state senators. Probably will report out some compromise and it will probably pass. There are a number of differences in the bills, but they both agree on the wording that in 2030 we should be at 50% of 1990 levels, and in 2040 we should be at 75% below 1990 levels. So that part is in common. I don't think the reconciliation would eliminate that unless they made it stricter. But both houses passed those numbers. What they disagreed in were other parts of the bill. So sounds like this might be a new state law. I'm going to write to people on that committee and ask them if they're doing it, shouldn't there be some mandate for the school building authority to enforce it? Or at least require consideration of these guidelines in any projects they're going to fund beginning now. So that's another thing I'm trying to write to that committee to see if they can maybe consider some language that other state agencies actually consider this. So that's what I intend to do. Anyone else have anything to say on this matter?
Dick, you're writing to them on your behalf as a private citizen, is that correct?
I suppose. Does the committee feel we should write as a committee?
I would sure want to review it at the next meeting if that were the case.
I think a month is too long. As always, they'll be reporting out by then.
Okay, then maybe you should do it on your own.
Okay.
I would disagree. I think it should be done as a committee. I think we've gone this far as a committee, and our letters to the editor weren't as individuals; they were as energy and climate action committees.
This is GB. I'm fine, with it being as a committee. I'm just wondering if we should enlist, other town committees as well.
Well, why don't we ask other town committees to write on their own? Because if we have to coordinate, it delays it even more.
Oh, that's fine.
Right.
I just think, more, the more input you get besides just Wellfleet, the better it'll be for us.
Right, but we can ask them to write their own letter.
Right, I agree.
We can give them a sample letter and say, can you bring this up? The letter should specifically reference the state agency that funds new buildings, I think, and ask whether or not they should consider or ask applicants to consider how they were going to meet the proposed guidelines. Okay? That would be the thrust of it. I don't want to say it's a mandate. I think it should be that any applicant should come up with a plan on how they're going to meet the state guidelines, which will inevitably lead them to the right answer. So if that's what people want, that's what I'll put in a letter, and I don't think we have time to circulate it and have another meeting.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking them to consider putting in some kind of language like that, I don't have an objection to that at all. I just don't think, I think you're right. I think making a mandate for the House and the Senate is not a good idea. That's my objection. So, I mean, and I know you've you've done that in your other requests. So that's my objection. I don't
I
think,
think the best approach is to ask people to explain how they're going to meet the guidelines rather than tell them what they are and say, do this. Okay?
yeah, I don't have any objections whatsoever to that. I would ask you to not put the town seal on it because I don't think that's appropriate. But I would not have any objection to ask you to write a letter, circulate it to us before you send it. And if there are any minor grammatical changes, we could have like 24 hours to do that, Dick, and have you send.
Okay. All right, I will send out, when I draft it, I will send out a draft and we'll see. Okay? We just can't have a serial conversation about it because of the open meeting law. Okay. I don't think anything's being done on the outreach program at this point. Oh, there was one other thing. There was a meeting put on by the Boston Globe, a webinar, and Biogen this morning, and the Secretary of Energy was one of the panelists. So they had chat questions, and I wrote to her in the chat and said, why are new school buildings being built that don't meet the state guidelines? But they chose not to pick that answer. Maybe I could have been more diplomatic. But I may follow up with her as well in her office and ask if there's anything that can be done and whether they can reach out to the school building committee. So that's what I'm doing there. Anything else anyone wants to bring up about this? Okay, I don't think we have anything on the community outreach. Any other future topics people want to talk about next time? No, okay. Possible actions with other energy committees. I will work with Brewster and I will continue to work with Orleans to get them to do something as a committee. We've gone over the grants. The state legislation, I brought you up to date. It's now in committee, and it looks good that it's in committee. Went to committee this week, so it's not far along. They're just beginning. If people want to write, I do have the names. Let me see if I can find them. Well, I will send out the names of all the people on the committee in case you want to write to them as individuals. Besides my writing on behalf of the committee. We talked that proposal, talked about the Global Covenant of Mayors. Anything from any of our liaison positions? Nope. No change in status on the landfill either. GB, how about the consolidation?
I have sent I think I mentioned before, I got a copy of consolidated bill from Chatham. Their consolidated bill is 129 pages, whereas the town of Wellfleet's is, I think, 19 pages.
Okay.
Individual pages. So they're quite a bit larger operation. But anyway, I sent that along to Mark Vincent and a copy to Jean Leidenfrost and said, here it is. You know, would appreciate if you could look it over, and if you have any questions, there are some things in their consolidated bill that I don't see in the Wellfleet bill, and I just suspect Wellfleet doesn't have situations that warrant or qualify for certain Eversource methodologies. But anyway, I said, if you have any questions, please gather them up and send them to me. I've got a pretty good contact at in Chatham, and I can send them along and then have a discussion with that contact and try to get any answers, and then hopefully somebody can make a decision.
Okay, have we got any contact with Eversource?
Well, I have a contact that I had worked with in the past at Eversource. However, when it comes to getting any information about consolidated bills, that is virtually impossible. They could not provide, Eversource could not provide me with a sample bill.
But yeah, that's not what I'm asking though. You
Right.
have someone you can talk to.
Well,
Maybe we should start working the other side of this equation to broach the subject of, under the Smart T program, when we get credits, can those credits be applied to the joint bill so we don't have to allocate the credits?
yeah, I'll
That's the subject I'd like to bring up with Eversource.
all right. I'll see what I can get from them. The contact I work with is in the customer service area, and she generally has to take any questions about consolidated bills to someplace in the billing department that
Right.
that people like you and I are forbidden to speak with.
Right. But she's going to have to take these questions to whoever deals with Smart T.
Right.
Okay, SMART program, not Smart T, the SMART program. So let's start that conversation so it doesn't end up as a surprise, okay?
We'll see what we can find out.
Okay, so that, because that's our whole goal, getting a consolidated bill was to be able to not have to allocate pieces of it in advance. And if we guess wrong, we may lose some of the credit. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Let's go back. Let me go back and look at the agenda. I guess the only other thing we have is old business and new business. Is there any old business anyone wants to bring up?
Yes, I have old business. I know that I had a conversation with the county administrator, and he said that the county is working with Wellfleet on a demonstration innovative septic project. And I emailed John Kumbler, and I said, you know, I know you have a high interest in this. Do you know anything about this? And he said, yes, I'm working on this through the Energy Committee. You know, and he, you know, I asked for clarification if we could talk, and he did not respond. But I believe it's with from what the county administrator said, I believe it's with the Lawrence Road project. And, you know, and I also said that you know, I sent John information that the assembly had an update on the test site, the septic test site that we have in their county, which is a very innovative program and one of the few in the country. And, you know, George has been working on this layered septic process, which is very innovative. And John calls it the sawdust method. So does anybody have any information about that?
Well, it's the first I've heard that the Energy Committee is doing anything about it. John doesn't come to our meetings very often, so I
Okay.
don't know. Would Hillary be aware of it at all?
I just was hoping he would come to the meeting, or David would be on the meeting, because I know they're both working with the Lawrence Road housing development issue with, and I thought it was mostly or strictly with energy efficiency and energy, solar, if,
Well, why don't you send David a note, send Hillary a note, and maybe send is it Gary Sorkin or Elaine McElroy, who knows?
right. But I mean, but it's news to you then too, that the
News to me.
Energy Committee on this, well, it could have, really great implications for our town, if this is a demonstration project and there is DEP approval, which I've been trying to follow up on, so that, it would help with our waste management plan.
Well, I'm not opposed, but we've never gotten into waste management.
No,
How many other committees that do that, right?
Hey, listen,
I don't, I can't keep them all straight, but there's a wastewater commission and there's a 208 plan that I know nothing about. And
to learn. I mean, and topics I never thought I'd be learning about, but, it all ties together, so it certainly would save on energy if that does come to fruition as well. That's another benefit of it.
how does it save on energy?
Well, it's my understanding that it takes a lot less energy to implement one of these more innovative septic.
Have you got an electric septic system that I haven't heard about? My septic system has no energy at all.
Well,
They do a better job than my septic system, but it shouldn't use any. Where are they saving on energy?
Well, Dick, I was watching a This Old House program one time, and they were working on a renovation in Rhode Island, I think, Westerly, Rhode Island, or something like that. And one of the things they did is they put in a new septic system, and it was quite a bit more complicated than just a tank. It had all sorts of filters and recirculating fluids and all of that kind of thing. And I'm quite sure that that had some kind of pump arrangement associated with it.
Well, it's a pump if you have to go uphill with the sewage, at least, and maybe.
No. It was. This was actually on level ground, but
Okay.
it was part of the way that the waste from the house was handled. It was supposed to be a far superior kind of septic arrangement.
Well,
yeah, and also there was a demonstration project that was put on by the library a few years ago, and there was it was a contest, and Elaine was she started it actually, and the finalists all had these displays at the upstairs at Siemens Bank, and when I was looking at the septic solutions for some of these, and I mean, they did say that there were low impact, innovative septic.
so I'm not against any of this. I wish them the best. But if you put pumps in, you're definitely using more energy than nothing, which is what my septic system. So it's not going to be low energy. It may be a good idea. I'd probably support it if I knew what it was. But okay.
Yeah.
It can't be energy saving.
That's another tangent, but okay.
So maybe we can find out who's involved. But, John belongs to 7 committees, and I don't think he does much on any of them.
Well, in any event, I just thought I'd bring it up.
Okay. Anything else? Any new business that someone wants to bring up? Okay, so this is a short meeting, I hope.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yes, and it needs to be a roll call vote.
I'll second that.
Second of all.
Chuck Cole.
Okay, so in order in which you will appear on my screen, Lily, you're first?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm, yes. Suzanne?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
I could lip read for that. TB?
Aye.
Chuck?
Aye.
Oh, we saw you. Lee. Okay. Well, thank you all. Our next meeting is about a month from now, the third Monday again. Let's see what, we should have discussed that before, but let's discuss it now. The
October.
19th, is that okay with everyone?
Should be. Yeah.
Okay, October 19th then. See you all then, if not sooner.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you all. Be
Thank
safe.
you.
Thank
Everybody.
you. Good
Thanks again.
night.